There comes a time in every life when the weight of sorrow bends the soul, when loss creeps in like a slow-moving storm, and hurt etches itself deep into the marrow of our being. The world teaches us to accept pain as a finality, to sit among the ruins of what once was and make a home in despair, but there's a force, an unseen hand, a power that restores. It does not simply mend brokenness, it recreates, reshapes, and breathes new life into the empty spaces. This power is not bound by time or human reasoning. It does not merely patch up the past. It ushers in something altogether new, something greater than what was lost. When the night stretches long, when grief becomes a second skin, this power moves unseen, preparing a dawn that will break in ways we never expected. But before the dawn comes, we must stand in the night, and that is where the journey begins. There was a woman once who sat at the edge of a river, staring into its endless flow. She had lost everything, her love, her dreams, the very rhythm of her days. The world had been unkind, stripping away what she held dear until all that remained was the echo of what once was. And as she sat there, watching the water move, she whispered a question to the wind. "Will I ever be whole again?" The silence answered her. It answered her not with words, not with explanations or reasons, but with movement. The water flowing, the trees swaying, the air shifting, life was still moving, even when she felt stuck. And that was the first whisper of restoration, not a loud proclamation, not an instant reversal of pain, but a gentle reminder that nothing stays broken forever. Pain has a way of making us believe in its permanence. It creeps in like a slow tide, washing over the shores of our lives, and we begin to believe that the water will never recede. We make peace with sorrow, we shake hands with despair, and we call it our fate. But that is not the way of restoration. No, restoration does not come to those who accept ruin as their final story. Restoration comes to those who, even in their brokenness, keep watching the river, waiting for the tide to turn. Loss has a voice and it speaks loud. It shouts of what was taken, what cannot be undone. It tells you that joy is a distant land you will never set foot upon again. It convinces you that your story has ended in the middle of a sentence. But the power that restores is greater than the voice of loss. It does not argue with pain. It moves beyond it. It does not erase history. It transforms it. There was a man long ago who walked through the ashes of his dreams. He had built a life of promise, a future of light, and in a single moment it was taken. Everything he touched crumbled, everything he loved faded, until he was left standing in the wreckage of his own making. And he wept not just for what he lost, but for what he feared he could never have again. But even in his despair, something within him would not let him surrender to ruin. He rose step by step through the debris of yesterday until he reached a place where light touched his face once more. And in that place, he found that what was taken had not been the end of his story, but the beginning of something far greater. Restoration does not mean returning to what was. No, restoration means stepping into something new. It means allowing the broken pieces of yesterday to become the foundation for a tomorrow you never imagined. It means trusting that the empty places in your life will not remain empty forever. There is a power that sees what was stolen, what was shattered, what was left in ruin, and it does not turn away. It does not shy from the weight of your sorrow, nor is it intimidated by the depth of your pain. It moves in the unseen spaces, weaving together a future that will make sense of your past. Healing is not always swift. It does not always arrive with trumpet sounds and grand gestures. Sometimes it comes in quiet moments, in the stillness of the morning, in the laughter you never thought you'd hear again. Sometimes healing walks slowly, taking its time, because true restoration is not a quick fix. It is a deep rebuilding. There will be days when the weight of what you've lost feels unbearable. There will be nights when the silence is too loud, when the memories press too heavy upon your soul. But restoration does not ask you to pretend you were never broken. It does not demand that you forget what was. It only asks that you keep moving, that you keep believing, that you keep your hands open to receive what is yet to come. For the one who has known sorrow, for the one who has walked through the valley of loss, for the one who has cried in the silence of the night, hear this: your story is not over. What was taken will not define you. What was broken will not hold you captive. There is a power that restores, a power that heals, a power that rebuilds from the ruins. So lift your eyes. The night is not forever. The tide is shifting, and restoration is closer than you think. There is something about brokenness that the world does not understand. It is not the end, not a final resting place for the weary soul. The world sees ruin and calls it permanent, sees loss and calls it the last chapter. But there is a power that looks upon devastation and calls it a beginning. It does not turn away from the wounded places. It does not shrink back from the sight of sorrow. It steps forward into the very heart of the storm and whispers a promise that even the wind must obey. There is a woman who lost everything she ever knew. Her hands once built a life full of hope. Her heart once beat to the rhythm of joy. But then, as life sometimes does, everything she loved was taken. Grief became her companion, pain her only certainty. She walked with heavy steps, her eyes dull with the weight of what she had endured. People saw her and shook their heads. She will never rise again, they said. She is too broken, too weary, too lost. But the power that restores was not finished with her. In the silence, in the loneliness, in the nights when she thought she would not survive until morning, something unseen was moving, slowly, gently, rebuilding what she could not yet see. Restoration does not always look the way we expect it to. Sometimes we look for what was, hoping it will return in the exact shape and form we remember. But restoration does not work backwards. It does not take you back, it moves you forward. It does not bring back the past, it creates something new. And what is new is not less than what was lost. It is not a lesser version, not a weak imitation of what used to be. No, what is new is stronger, greater, filled with purpose. But to step into it, you must first let go of the idea that restoration means returning to what once was. A man once stood in the ruins of his home. Everything he built had crumbled. Every foundation had given way beneath him. He could see only the destruction, only the evidence of what had been taken. He was ready to give up, ready to lay down in the dust and call himself defeated. But then, from the very ground where he stood, new life began to rise. Not in the way he expected, not in the way he had planned, but in a way that was greater than he had dared to imagine. And as he watched, as he let go of his desperate grasp on the past, he realized that the ruins were not his ending. They were the very place where his future would be built. Pain will try to convince you that you will never feel joy again. It will whisper in the dark corners of your mind that hope is for other people, that healing is not for you. But pain is a liar. It does not see the full picture, does not know the power that is at work beyond what the eye can see. The moment you believe that sorrow is forever, you have agreed with a lie. The truth is that nothing stays broken forever. The truth is that even in the deepest loss, there is something waiting to be restored. There is a force greater than grief. It is not intimidated by the depth of your despair. It is not shaken by the weight of your sorrow. It steps into the mess, into the shattered places, and it begins to rebuild. But it does not simply repair what was broken. It makes something new, something beautiful, something unshakable. And though you may not see it yet, though your eyes may still be clouded with the tears of yesterday, the work has already begun. A woman once sat in a dark room. the light outside mocking her pain. She had been waiting for healing, waiting for restoration, but it seemed as though nothing would ever change. Then, one day, she stepped outside. She did not feel different, did not expect anything to be different, but as she stood beneath the sky, she realized that something within her had shifted. The grief that once held her captive had loosened its grip. The sorrow that once felt eternal was beginning to fade. It did not happen all at once, did not come with a sudden revelation or a grand moment of clarity. No, it came in small steps, in quiet moments, in the realization that life was moving forward and she was still standing. Restoration is not always loud. It does not always come with great signs and wonders. Sometimes it comes in the smallest things, in the strength to rise when you thought you could not, in the breath you take after night you thought would break you, in the laughter that surprises you when you thought joy was lost forever. It comes in the gentle reminders that you are still here, that you have survived, that you are not abandoned. Some may look at their pain and believe it is too great, too deep, too overwhelming to ever be restored. But there is nothing beyond the reach of the power that heals. There is no loss so great that it cannot be redeemed, no hurt so deep that it cannot be mended. The power that restores is not limited by human understanding, not bound by time or circumstance. It does not ask permission from pain to do its work. It moves with authority, with certainty, with the knowledge that what was lost is not greater than what is yet to come. There was once a man who believed he would never love again. Life had taken too much from him, had stripped him of too many dreams. He had seen too much loss, endured too much suffering. He built walls around his heart, convinced that if he never felt again, he would never be heard again. But restoration does not settle for survival. It does not leave you in the ruins. It calls you back to life, back to love, back to a future that is greater than your past. And one day when he least expected it, love found him again. It did not come in the way he planned, did not look the way he imagined, but it was real and it was strong, and it was proof that even the most broken heart can beat again. Healing is not forgetting. Restoration is not pretending the pain never existed. It is acknowledging that even though you were broken, you are not beyond repair. It is understanding that even though you have suffered, suffering does not define you. It is knowing that loss may have taken something from you, but it has not taken everything. You are still here. You are still breathing. And that means the story is not over. There is a power that is working even now, even in the places you cannot see. It is moving through the ashes, through the silence, through the emptiness that once felt unbearable. It is bringing life to dead places, hope to weary souls, light to the darkest corners of your mind. And when the time is right, when you are ready to see, you will look back and realize that what you thought was your ending was only the beginning. So do not give in to the lie that pain is forever. Do not bow to the voice that says restoration is not for you. Stand even if you stand with trembling hands. Rise even if you rise with weary legs. Walk forward even if each step feels uncertain, because the power that restores is not finished yet. It is still working. There is something about pain that makes it feel eternal. It settles into the bones, whispers its permanence into the mind, convinces the heart that this is all there is. The weight of it presses down, making the air thick, the days heavy, the nights endless. But pain is not the final voice. Pain does not have the last word. There is something greater at work, something unseen, something more powerful than sorrow. It does not rush, it does not force, but when the time is right, it moves, and when it moves, nothing remains the same. There was once a woman who carried her sorrow like a cloak, draped over her shoulders, covering her from the world. She had learned to live with it, to move through life with the ache always present, always pressing. She had given up the thought of ever feeling whole again. But one day, without warning, the cloak began to unravel. It did not happen all at once. A thread loosened here, a stitch came undone there, and before she realized what was happening, the weight she had grown used to was slipping away. She had not fought for it, had not even believed it was possible, but restoration had come for her anyway. It had found her where she was, in the quiet, in the sorrow, in the place she thought she would never leave. Loss tells you that nothing can be made new. It points to the wreckage and says, look at what is gone. But restoration does not look at what is missing. It looks at what can be built. It does not stand in grief and mourn forever. It steps forward, even when the way is unclear, even when the heart is still heavy. It understands that healing is not about erasing the past, but about moving toward a future that is greater than the pain that came before it. There was once a man who thought his best days were behind him. He had loved and lost, had built and watched it all crumble. He measured time not in possibilities, but in memories, in moments that could never be lived again. He believed he had seen all the good life had to offer, and that what remained was only endurance, not joy. But restoration does not settle for endurance. It does not leave you in a state of survival. It breathes new life, new dreams, new purpose. And one day that man found himself standing in a place he never expected, feeling a joy he thought was impossible, living a story he never imagined could be his. Healing is not about pretending the pain never happened. It is about recognizing that pain does not have to be the end. It is about knowing that even though something was lost, something else is being formed. The power that restores does not take away the memory of sorrow, but it gives you something greater to hold on to. It replaces grief with joy, despair with hope, emptiness with fullness. There is a process to restoration, a timing that cannot be rushed. It does not always come the way we want it to, does not always move according to our expectations. Sometimes it comes slowly, so slowly that we do not recognize it as happening until we look back and realize we are no longer in the same place. Other times it comes suddenly, like a flood washing away the remnants of sorrow in a single moment. But whether slow or swift, it always comes. It always finds its way to those who are willing to receive it. Some people fear healing because they believe it means forgetting. They hold on to their pain as a way to hold on to what they lost, as if letting go of suffering means letting go of love, letting go of memory, letting go of what was. But restoration does not erase. It does not take away what was precious. It does not demand that you forget. It simply makes room for something new. It allows you to carry your memories without being weighed down by them. It allows you to honor what was while stepping into what will. There was once a woman who had been betrayed by those she trusted most. The wounds they left were deep, the scars visible in every word she spoke, every step she took. She built walls around her heart, determined never to be hurt again. But restoration does not leave us behind walls. It does not let fear be the ruler of our lives. It calls us back into the world, back into love, back into trust. And though it took time, though it required courage, that woman found herself learning to open her heart again, to trust again, to believe in goodness again. There is no wound too deep that it cannot be healed, no loss too great that it cannot be restored, no sorrow too heavy that it cannot be lifted. The power that restores does not measure pain the way the world does. It does not look at what was taken and decide there is nothing left. It sees beyond the moment, beyond the heartbreak, beyond the devastation. It sees what is possible, what is coming, what is already being formed beneath the surface. Sometimes restoration begins in ways we do not recognize. It comes in small joys, in quiet moments, in the simple act of waking up and feeling a little lighter than the day before, It comes in the laughter that sneaks up on you when you least expect it. It comes in the realization that you are still here, still standing, still capable of feeling, of dreaming, of hoping. It comes in the understanding that even though the past has shaped you, it does not define you. There was once a man who thought he would never be free from his past. The mistakes he made, the people he hurt, the years he wasted, all of it weighed on him like a chain he could never break. He carried his regret like a burden, convinced that he could never move beyond it. But restoration does not leave us in regret. It does not keep us bound to our mistakes. It calls us forward, not backward. And that man, the one who thought he could never be free, one day looked up and realized the chains were gone. They had fallen away, not in a single moment, not in a grand gesture, but piece by piece, as he stepped forward in faith, as he allowed himself to believe in the possibility of something new. The greatest lie pain tells is that it will last forever. It convinces you that you will always feel this way, that the weight will never lift, that the wound will never close. But pain does not tell the truth. Pain does not see the whole story. It does not know what is coming, does not understand the power that is moving even now, even in this moment. It does not recognize that even as it presses down, something greater is rising. Restoration does not erase the past, but it does transform it. It takes the things that were meant to break you and uses them to build you. It turns sorrow into wisdom, turns loss into strength, turns pain into purpose. It does not remove every scar, but it gives meaning to them. It does not deny what happened, but it refuses to let what happened define you. There is something powerful about knowing that nothing is wasted, that every tear shed, every moment of suffering, every season of loss is not without purpose. The power that restores does not let anything be in vain. It uses even the darkest moments to create something beautiful. It takes what was meant for harm and turns it for good. It takes what was broken and makes it whole in a way that could never have been imagined. There is a woman who once thought she had reached the end. She had nothing left to give, no strength left to fight. But one day she realized something. She was still here. She was still breathing. And if she was still here, that meant the story was not over. It meant there was something more, something greater, something waiting for her beyond the pain. And as she took her first hesitant step forward, she began to see that what she thought was an ending was only the beginning of something new. So do not believe the lie that you will always be in this place. Do not listen to the voice that tells you restoration is for others but not for you. The power that restores is reaching even now, moving even now, rebuilding even now. And though you may not see it yet, though you may still feel the weight of what was, the day is coming when you will look back and realize that you have been made new. There is a mystery to restoration that the world cannot understand. It is not just the mending of what was torn, not simply the return of what was lost. It is the creation of something greater, something stronger, something so deeply woven with purpose that even the pain that preceded it cannot diminish its glory. The world tells us that when something is broken, it loses its value. It tells us that when something is shattered, it is beyond repair. But there is a power at work that does not abide by human limitations. It takes the pieces, the fragments, the wreckage, and from it something new is born. There was a man who once stood in the ruins of his own making. He had made choices that led him to destruction, had walked roads that stripped him of everything he held dear. The weight of regret pressed on his chest like a stone. He believed he had forfeited his right to redemption, that he was too far gone to ever be made whole again. But the power that restores does not operate according to human worthiness. It does not ask whether you deserve another chance. It does not tally up failures or count missteps. It simply moves like the rising of the sun after the longest night. And as that man stood in the ruins, something stirred beneath his feet. It was small at first, almost imperceptible, but slowly, steadily, new life began to take root. Restoration does not ignore the past, but it does not chain you to it. It does not deny what has been lost, but it refuses to let loss be the final word. It acknowledges the suffering, the grief, the sorrow, but it does not let them define the future. The world says you are your pain. It says you are your failures, your disappointments, your tragedies. Always dislike you. It does not determine the future. It says that what was taken will be replaced with something greater. A woman once carried an emptiness within her that she could not explain. She had survived, had endured, had walked through fire and come out the other side, but something was missing. There was a hollowness where joy should have been, a silence where laughter once lived. She had resigned herself to a life of mere existence, of waking and moving and doing what was necessary, but never truly living. But restoration does not settle for survival. It does not leave us half alive. It does not allow us to exist in the space between hope and despair. One day, when she least expected it, something shifted. A small thing, a kindness from a stranger, a song that stirred a long-forgotten memory, a moment of stillness that felt like peace. And from that small thing, the process began. She did not realize it then, but that day marked the beginning of her return to life. The journey of healing is not always quick. It is not always clean. It is a process, a path that winds through valleys and climbs over mountains. Some days feel like progress. Others feel like returning to the very place you were trying to escape. But even on the days when it feels like nothing is changing, restoration is at work. It does not always announce itself. It does not always come with fanfare. Sometimes it comes in the quiet, in the unnoticed moments, in the simple realization that today does not hurt as much as yesterday. Some people will tell you to move on too quickly. They will tell you to forget, to bury the pain, to pretend that nothing ever happened. But true restoration does not ask you to forget. It does not erase what you have been through. Instead, it gives meaning to it. It transforms it into something that can be used for good. It takes the ashes and turns them into something beautiful. A man once lived with the weight of words spoken over him in his youth. He had been told he was not enough, that he would never amount to anything. And though he had tried to rise above it, those words had woven themselves into his identity. He walked through life with the burden of believing he was unworthy, undeserving, incapable of being truly whole. But restoration does not leave us trapped in old lies. It does not allow the words of the past to dictate the future. One day, that man heard another voice, a voice that spoke truth, a voice that told him he was more than what had been spoken over him, that he was capable, that he was chosen, that he was loved. And as he listened, the old words began to lose their power. Restoration is not just about what is lost being returned. It is about being made into something that could not have existed without the breaking. It is about becoming stronger, wiser, deeper. It is about stepping into something that could never have been reached if the old had not been stripped away. The world tells us that broken things are worthless, that the shattered pieces are too far gone. But there is a force that specializes in broken things. It gathers them, holds them, reshapes them. It does not discard what has been damaged. It does not look at the scars and turn away in disappointment. It sees beyond what is visible. It sees what is possible. There was once a woman who had been through more than most could bear. Loss had come for her again and again. She had prayed for restoration but saw no evidence of it. She had waited, hoped, believed, yet still the sorrow remained. She wondered if maybe she had been forgotten, if maybe restoration was for others but not for her. But just when she was about to give up, something happened. It was not what she expected. It did not come in the way she had imagined, but it was undeniable, a shift, a new beginning. And as she stepped forward into the unknown, she realized that restoration had been happening all along. It had been moving beneath the surface, shaping her in ways she could not see. There is a power that works in the waiting, in the stillness, in the places where it feels like nothing is happening. It does not forget. It does not abandon. It does not leave things half finished. When it begins a work of restoration, it carries it to completion. It does not start and then walk away. It does not make empty promises. It fulfills what it has spoken. Some people fear restoration because it means change. It means stepping out of what is familiar, even if what is familiar is painful. It means releasing the old, even if the old is all they have ever known. But the power that restores does not take without giving. It does not ask you to let go without preparing something greater. The process may be painful. It may require surrender. It may require trust. But what is waiting on the other side is worth it. There was once a man who had been carrying the same sorrow for decades. It had become a part of him, woven into his identity. He did not know who he would be without it. And so, even as restoration reached for him, he resisted. He clung to what was broken because it was familiar. But the power that restores is patient. It does not force. It does not demand. It simply waits. And one day, that man made a choice, a small one, a simple one. He took a single step forward, and in that step, everything began to change. Restoration does not require perfection. It does not require that you have it all figured out. It only requires that you take the next step, that you dare to believe that something new is possible. It only requires that you do not give up before the work is done. There is something waiting beyond the pain, something greater than the loss, something more powerful than the sorrow. And though you may not see it yet, though you may still be standing in the middle of the wreckage, it is already moving. It is already working. And when the time is right, when you are ready to see, you will look back and realize that restoration was happening all along. Restoration is not a distant dream, not a fleeting hope, but a promise unfolding even now. It does not erase the past, but it transforms it. It does not deny the pain, but it refuses to let pain be the final chapter. Healing does not always come in the way we expect, nor in the timing we desire, but it always comes. It moves in the unseen places, working beneath the surface, bringing renewal where there was once despair. There is a greater plan at work, one that turns sorrow into strength, loss into renewal, and brokenness into beauty. The weight you have carried, the wounds you have endured, the grief that has overshadowed you, none of it is wasted. The power that restores is still moving, still healing, still rebuilding. And when you step forward in faith, you will find that what was once broken has been made whole in ways you never imagined.